My grandparents were originally from Kentucky, the foothills of Kentucky. And I personally think I have an Ohio accent. But as a kid, when we would go down south to visit my grandparents and we would come back up, and on Monday I would go back to school, and the kids at school would go, where did this southern, hillbilly drawl come from?
So now funny you say that. My great grandmother had a big part in raising me. And she always said window. Always. That was just, and I just picked it up. And now I don't say window. So Emily says to me, how do you spell that? And I was kind of mad and offended about it. I was like, listen, this is how my granny talked, and I want to carry that on. I mimic her, yes.
Yes. See, I've heard winder, and I've heard window, because winder is kind of Kentucky-ish. Close the window. We're going to offend a lot of people from the South in this episode. Welcome to another week of the Health, Tech, and Wellness Podcast. I'm John Adams.
And I'm Crystal Nevadale.
And this week, we're going to break up the talking points a little bit. We've been getting really serious recently, and I just wanted to bring up some fun topics that had happened to me recently that had kind of came up, and I'm like, man, these would make really great show topics. But before we dive into that, Crystal, I saw on Facebook you and Emily went shooting, and I'll tell you, that's kind of, other than poker, that's one of my other fun pastimes. I didn't know you guys enjoy that, so you're going to have to invite us next time. I don't know if Cindy will do any shooting because she scares me to death with a gun in her hand. But how'd you like that? Is that your first time? I didn't even know you did it at all.
No, I have been shooting, or I had my first gun at 10. I was at 22. So I've been shooting for a long time. However, I was very rusty. Emily's kind of giving me a whole new training on it. She's been doing it now 4 years, and she's in leagues and different things like that. So what you saw on Facebook was we were at Lake Erie Arms banquet for all the leagues. So they were giving away prizes and things like that. And then we usually they don't let anybody shoot after an event like that. But because we don't drink, they allowed us to shoot. So we were like the only one pretty much on the range. So that was kind of nice and fun.
Oh,
and it gave me a chance. Yeah, it gave me a chance to feel more comfortable because when there's a lot of people in there and there's a lot of talking and a lot of things going on, it's hard to focus. And I'm really trying to get good at my aim. She's teaching me compensating different things. And so I really need the concentration thing. So it was a lot of fun. It was great.
No, that's awesome. So I've been to Lake Erie Armory. That's the Armory, right?
It's called Lake Erie Arms now. They moved out on 250.
Yeah. So we were actually just there last year. Speaking of poker, they did a huge poker tournament there. And I actually took first place. It was pretty fun. But I've been to so many gun ranges and so many gun shops. This place blew me away. I've never seen something so fancy like a lodge. Like this place is amazing.
They have a sauna. And they have a sweat room. They have showers. We've made a whole event of it. We go to dinner. They have a private little place to have dinner, and it's really nice.
Yeah, I didn't get to see all of that. I saw the range for 2 seconds before we went up and played poker, and they were serving beer and stuff. So yeah, nobody shot or anything, but we did get to play poker there. But it was kind of amazing. Anyway, I just wanted to touch base because I saw it on Facebook, and I'm like, I wanted to shoot you a message, and I'm like, no, I'm saving this for the podcast because I honestly did not know, and that's kind of interesting. So giving people a little insight to both of us. Let me ask you this, because this kind of happened to me this week, and this is where this whole topic came from. So have you ever been around somebody who yawns, and then suddenly you just start to feel it? The eyes are starting to water, and your jaw's opening, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, did I just yawn too? It's the weirdest part, right? So kind of what brought this up is the other day, I picked up this passenger, and we're going to the airport, and he gets in my car, and I try to, small talk if they want to. So he gets in the car, and I'm like, hey, how you doing? Where are you flying off to? And he just gets in, it doesn't say much of all. So I'm like, okay, cool, whatever. So he's back there, and he's fiddling on his phone, and the entire stinking ride, 25 minutes, over and over and over. And I'm like, well, if we were talking, you might not be so tired, but whatever. So it gets fine. But then I catch myself yawning by the time I drop him off. Now that I've caught the yawn, I get to my very next customer and I pull up to pick him up, and then I yawn. And all of a sudden, the passenger that I just picked up, he's like, "Don't do that. You know those are contagious." So it starts this whole spark of conversation about, is yawning really contagious? Like, all the back and forth. And I'd seen an episode of Mythbusters, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, years ago, but I really kind of brushed it off. And then he saw my little placard that I got on the back of my passenger seat, and he's like, "Oh, you do a podcast?" And I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "That's a great topic." And I'm like, "No, we talk mental health and wellness and physical health. I don't really think that's a topic." And he goes, "You know that that's an empathy receptor, right? You know that that is mental health and it's mimicking and stuff." And I'm like, "No, I did not know." So literally I had to come home and start doing some research, because the only thing I've been experienced with it is catching the yawn myself from other people, and then what I saw on Mythbusters, which was a whole different game. So I kind of wanted to just get into that topic and just discuss, why does yawning kind of affect us that way? Why do we catch the yawn? So here we are. Basically, some of the studies that I did, we can go into for sure, which was, researchers believe that yawning's contagious because we want to connect with the next person that we're with. It's kind of a mimicking thing, and then it's neurons in our brain firing that are trying to fit in. I don't know how true that is, because here, I'll just straightforward. I don't have kids. You have kids, but a kid can come out of the womb yawning. So I don't know how much of it is physical and how much of it is mental, but going into a lot of the research, that's what they're saying, that yes, the yawn starts for the physical reasons, the oxygen, the, trying to breathe, stuff like that. But then the other people in the room picking it up, it's usually mimicking. Or one of the other things that they brought up is it's a sympathy receptor, that the more sympathetic you are, the more likely that you're going to yawn. And if you are more of a, and I don't like the word they use, but if you're more of a narcissistic person, you may not catch the yawn. But if you're more of a sympathetic person, that you may. So let me just this is a fun topic, but let's talk a little serious with it, right? So let's talk about the psychological side and the mental health side of it. So just what are your thoughts on that whole catching the yawn thought?
So, in mimicking or mirroring, there's
Mhm.
subconscious and there's unconscious, or I'm sorry, there's subconscious and there's conscious. So there are things that we choose to mimic, to get a deeper connection with somebody. And then there are things that our body just thinks that we need to mimic to connect. So in my opinion, this is just an opinion, yawning is one of those things where you're not thinking about it. It's not a you thing. It's a subconscious thing. It's just happening naturally from the way our body is made to connect with people. Um,
Yeah.
and when it comes to like mimicking and matching behaviors and patterns and all that with your people around you, that's a real thing. You could even pay attention to how you speak. If you spend a lot of time with someone, you'll be using their words before you know it. Like it's and there are healthy ways and there are unhealthy ways. So there we had talked about that for a second too. When you
Mhm.
said narcissistic behavior,
Mhm.
some people emotionally will use those kinds of tools to I had wrote some different things, but it was basically to deceive or create an artificial sense of similarity to gain control or trust. So in knowing that, you have to understand that there are two sides to every coin. They're not always healthy reasons we are doing things. They're not always unhealthy, but there are two sides to every coin. And the involuntary signal, when it's involuntary and nonverbal, I had written it like more of a sign of connection and trust. So when you're not thinking about it and it is on a subconscious level and you're doing it naturally, it should feel natural. If you're having to play a part or you're having to do something to get someone's attention, that's not what you want to be doing. That's not healthy. You're doing it just basically to fit in.
so I 100% agree with everything you just said, but now let me play devil's advocate.
Here we
know
go.
the guy. I didn't know the guy in my car. I got no reason to play it up. It just happens, right? So that's more that subconscious thing that you're talking about, where now you're not even thinking about it. It's just, so maybe that is the empathy side, because I wasn't tired. I mean,
Right.
I get in my car. It's the most unhealthy thing in the world, but I get in my car, I crack a Monster. It's a 0 sugar Monster, but I crack a Monster immediately when I get in the car, start driving. I'm not tired. He gets in the car. And I start yawning. So first off, let me apologize to our entire listening crowd. Okay, if you're watching on YouTube, if you're listening on Spotify or Apple or anything, if you're yawning right now, it's not our fault. We just said it's science. We're not boring. But going back to what you said a minute ago with the subconscious versus the conscious piece, and you talked about mimicking the way people talk. And that took me back a few years. So my grandparents on both sides were originally from Kentucky, the foothills of Kentucky. And I personally think I have an Ohio accent. But as a kid, when we would go down south to visit my grandparents, and then we would come back up, because my dad worked swing shift at the steel plant, and we would come back up. And on Monday, I would go back to school. And the kids at school would literally make fun and go, "Where did this Southern, hillbilly drawl come from?" And I didn't even realize it. So that actually makes sense, because they said I would come back and y'all and yang. And so I did not know that. So that what you just said takes me way back to the Wayback Machine. That makes perfect sense.
So now, funny you say that. So Emily and I just had a really serious conversation about this, because I say things. My great grandmother had a big part in raising me. She lived with my grandparents, which I spent a ton of time at on my father's side. And she always said window. Always. Always. That was just, and I just picked it up. And now I don't say window. So Emily says to me, "How do you spell that?" And I was kind of mad and offended about it. I was like, "Listen, like, this is how my granny talked, and I want to carry that on. I mimicked her." Yes.
Yes. Oh my God. So is that subconscious or conscious?
So for me now, it's subconscious. Like, I use that word always. Like, I hardly ever say the word window.
Okay. Window. Yeah. See, I've heard winder and I've heard winda, because winder is kind of Kentucky-ish. But winda,
this is West Virginia. This is in the
West
holler.
Virginia. Okay, and now it's similar. Window. Close the window. We're going to offend a lot of people from the South.
Well, I'm going to keep talking like that till I die. It reminds me of my granny,
Yeah. That's so funny. Well, yeah, so my grandparents were the same way. And that makes me laugh now, actually, thinking back to how many times I would come back from Kentucky with my parents. And the kids at school would be like, "Where did that Southern drawl come from? Tang and yang."
But we do pick it up. We really do.
We do. And then, so a couple other things that I jotted down, and it kind of makes sense. Think about this, everybody that's listening, and you, Crystal, and let's kind of go into this a little bit. And I think this is more of the sympathy thing. But now that you mention the conscious side of it, of trying to fit in, but more like I'm your friend and I'm not, it could go hand in hand too. But somebody be telling you a story. Yeah, man, I just got up out of the bed and I slammed my toe into the bed. Man, that hurts. And we subconsciously wince, right? Immediately you're just like, oh, that, you know what I mean? So that's kind of the same philosophy, right? As long as it's subconscious and you truly do empathize with them.
Right.
But I didn't think about that. How many times are you laughing and say, oh, you busted your toe, but then you're still wincing. So I kind of a little funny there. So I guess yawning in that same thing, with the empathy side, there's a lot of studies that suggest that the people who don't. So think back in your life, and I honestly don't know too many that I've never paid attention to it. So we're going to have to start paying attention to it. That I've noticed that there's a room full of people yawning that they don't yawn. But there's so many studies that state that it's part of that, I hate that word, but narcissistic thing where they just don't have any empathy. Do you agree with that though? Because like you said, I don't think I've ever seen anybody. Maybe they're pretending, but I don't think I've ever seen anybody that there's a room full of yawners and you're just not yawning.
Yeah, I don't think everybody's always looking for something else to say about everything. You know how that goes. Like honestly, like you're narcissistic if you don't yawn. I mean, come on.
Right, exactly.
Maybe they don't like their teeth and they're embarrassed and they don't want people to see their mouth, or like there's a million other reasons someone can consciously choose not to yawn.
So that's kind of what I was going to get into next. Because I've always, up until recently, I had it filled in the front, but I always smiled with my bottom teeth or none at all. Because right in the front here, and my father had the same gap, and I brush your teeth as a million times. We both got it. And I never wanted to smile with my front teeth showing because I always had that gap right there. And then I got it fixed and filled. And, when we first started talking about the podcast, I think I'd mentioned to you that I'd been to the dentist probably 500 times in the last 6 months because I had some dental work being taken care of. And call that narcissistic if you want. I was uncomfortable on camera. I'm just going to be honest, and that was something that I had to get over because it's already especially when I was recording by myself, it was already tough enough talking to an inanimate object without somebody talking back. And then every time I would go to edit and notice the little gap, it would drive me absolutely insane. So yeah, I could see that 100% is why. So sometimes I think studies just look for reasons. You know what I mean? I don't see not yawning as a narcissistic trait, if that makes sense.
Sometimes
I kind of wanted to hammer that home.
I was having this conversation again. Emily and I talk about a lot of stuff, and we were talking about how some things don't connect, but we try to make them connect.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like what I feel about sometimes about research. Like some of it they look at only black and white, and there's this humongous gray portion.
Gray area.
Huge. And it is in every single thing you talk about. It really is. Like you can have two different opinions, and there could be a third person that comes in, and you can relate and understand each person's position because they all make sense, but they're not always connected. It's sometimes we're just pulling at straws to make it connect. And sometimes there's just a gray area that is, you can't research.
Right. And that was kind of when I went into this path for making this episode, and I'm looking at that stuff and I'm like, some of the connections that they were trying to draw. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I understand where they're saying, sometimes you'll notice it more between family members or between friends or people that you're comfortable around. Sure. But I can't tell you how many times that time in the car included that I'm with a total stranger. They're young. It's such a reflex, and you probably hit the nail right on the head when you said that it's a subconscious, going back to the empathy piece, that it's a subconscious empathy thing. Not that you're being empathetic, but it's that subconscious connection. And you don't even think about it. There's not a reason why you don't. There's not a reason why you do
something enough times. It's repetitive. Think about when you drive home from work, and you drive home from work exactly the same way every single day. There are times you get home and you don't even know how you got home because you are on automatic You're just going where you're supposed to. So it's the same thing with our emotions. I feel like it's the same scenario.
Yeah. So on that note, we talked about this in one of our earlier episodes together. But yeah, look, I did that. That was my straw at when I left Lowe's. I was opening and closing, opening and closing, opening and closing back to back. That last day when I said I'm not doing the open to close anymore, and that was what we opened at 5 o'clock, so I had to be there by 4, and I wasn't getting home until sometimes 11 o'clock, 11:30 at night. And that last day when I got in the car, turned the car on, I don't remember driving home. The next thing I remember was putting it in park with my garage door in front of me. And I literally walked in. I said, Cindy, I don't remember. I had to walk around the car in the dark, looking around because I didn't remember driving home. Scariest thing in the world. And so, yeah, no, 100%. You just, sometimes the repetition will get you through it. And luckily the repetition got me home that day because I drove home in a blacked out state. But yeah, so that's kind of an offshoot there for sure. But I did want to talk about that, going way back to that Mythbusters episode on the yawning thing. They did an entire study where they picked up random people. They brought them in and they just kind of brought them in under the ruse that they were coming in for some kind of a survey or something. And they gave them all this survey on like tax culture and stuff, the most boring things in the world, in hopes that somebody in the room might yawn on their own. And one person did, but then it didn't do anything. Nobody yawned. Then they said, okay, we'll put a plant in there. The plant, when they put them in, they yawned just like the gentleman in my car all the way to the airport. They yawned continuously. Just the big, loud, obnoxious yawns. And then finally, the entire room started yawning. So honestly, all that being said, I think that it's more like you just said. It's more of just that repetitive thing is ingrained into us to have that connection, and we don't even notice it. That's why I think in their study that when that first person that wasn't a plant had yawned once, it didn't affect anybody. But once it became a routine, that's when it started to affect everybody. I don't know. That was just kind of my 2 cents on it. And honestly, my biggest goal behind doing this entire episode is to see how many of our listeners will throw in the comments that you made me yawn. Seriously.
That's the goal, John.
That's the goal. Because here I wrote this down. We've had animals growing up, and I don't know if you've had any dogs growing up, but I know I've seen my dog yawn. Now, I don't know if they caught it from us, but I've seen a dog yawn. You be reading about yawning, and you're going to start yawning. Preparing for this episode, jotting down everything, what we're going to talk about, I was yawning. I don't know if you noticed that when you were looking at the notes when I sent them to you and you were putting your thing together, but it is a subconscious thing. I don't think we think about it. I just think that it's something that is a fun quirk that we all have. And do I honestly think that it means that you're more empathetic or more narcissistic than anybody else? No. I guess you probably have the same.
First of all, let me tell you this. Narcissistic people are very good at hiding among the weeds. So you're never going to know it by a damn yawn, I promise. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah, that's true. That is very true. But yeah, so I guess my final take on this, and this is a very short episode, but my final take on this is if you catch the yawn from somebody, don't think about it, that it's contagious. It's just a fun little thing that we all think about, and enjoy the fact that, you're just trying to be part of the group. But
right.
if you've been yawning this entire episode, I do apologize and I'm sorry, But I would love it if you'd throw it into the comments and just say, hey, by the way, you did make me yawn. But here's where, we just kind of want to wrap this one up a little bit with just the idea that any subconscious thing, whether it's yawning, whether it's, wincing, whatever it is, when you're reacting to somebody or you're just on your own, it is truly a subconscious mental thing, and stress can bring it on. Your attitude in that situation can affect whether you react to it or you don't. Your energy, 100%. And then you hit it on the head earlier, just your habits, the constant routine of things can also bring on any of that. So we absorb emotional environments around us, and that's the biggest thing. And I did an episode way back when I was by myself doing the podcast, and I was talking about that the energy that you put out can affect other people, but the energy that you're around can also affect you. So choose wisely the people that you decide to put in your environment, because not only can you potentially catch the yawn, but they can also affect your mood. They can affect how your day is going to go. You could walk into a room, and this is scientific, 100% proven. You can start your day great, feeling awesome, walk into a room with a ton of negativity, and that negativity is going to hit you like a brick wall. Yes, you can choose to not let it affect you, but if you stay in that environment long enough, it's going to be really hard to avoid it. So all that to be said, I want to just end with that yes, yawns can be contagious, but so can the people that you choose to put yourself around. Any final thoughts from you, Crystal?
Just be true to yourself, and that's it.
No, awesome. That's the biggest thing is just completely be true to yourself. Don't let other people's environment affect you negatively. And just, just choose your environments wisely is what I wanted you to kind of get out of this. It was a little fun talking about the, catching the yawns, but that's the biggest overall is just put yourself in those environments that will help you to grow. And on that note, though, if you did catch the yawn during this episode, this might actually be a sign that your brain is doing exactly what it's designed to do, right? It's just you're trying to, fit in and connect, right? So if you enjoyed this episode, share this with somebody that you want to pass the yawn on to, right? And just see if they catch the yawn just listening to the episode. And also they get to hear us have some crazy conversations, some real serious and some not so much, some a little funner. But we'd love it if you just share it around, because I think that we do share a lot of things on this show that can help people. Because here on this podcast, we explore, the psychology behind pretty much everyday life. And we've got the scars to prove it. And I've said it before, and I'll continue to say it. We don't have the degrees, but we have the scars. And those things, can really just help the people that are listening. And I've had people reach out to me personally, a few in the comments. And I just want to try to get this out to as many people as possible. So if you could just continue to share this out, that would be great. And then on that connection piece, connection doesn't always have to be complicated. Sometimes it's the smallest moments that bring people together. A conversation, a smile, a shared laugh, or even a contagious yawn. And that's where you can head on out for a little bit of connection at Crystal's Treasure Box, where she's built a lot of beautiful things that you can connect with her about and talk about the stones and just the things that she's got. There's a lot of meaning behind everything there. And it's a place where people can slow down, connect, and experience something intentional, because the little moments often turn into the most meaningful ones at the end. And if you are building something, a podcast, a brand, or a business, there's another lesson here too. Energy spreads, just like yawning. So if you show up consistently with passion, with authority, people start to feel that. They mirror it. That's how momentum is built, right? So through the Amplify program that I offer, we can help creators, business owners, or anybody else build systems that spread like energy consistently, content systems that keep your voice showing up so your message keeps reaching people, because the right message shared consistently can spread further than you think. So the next time you yawn or somebody else yawns around you and you suddenly feel that urge coming on to follow along with them, remember this: your brain isn't malfunctioning, it's connecting. And sometimes the smallest signals can remind us how connection really can make us better people. And as always, stay healthy.
Stay balanced.
And keep driving forward. We'll see you next time.
We'll see you next time.